Hello everyone and welcome to another Top 5 Records video. A couple of weeks ago I made a top 10 with the best Elvis Presley albums. And I have to correct myself because a lot of users, followers said you are missing out an essential record. Now, that is a record that's not seen as a typical studio album by Elvis Presley, and that's why I did not notice it during my first research. But we are talking about the Sun Sessions, this album. And I got curious because of all the comments, and then one of the followers of this channel, Ruud, he sells records at the Waterloo Square Market in Amsterdam. He showed me that he had one for sale. This is a 1979 mono cut. The record was originally released in 1975, and I bought it, and I'm hooked. And that's why I'm making this video, because I have to come back to the initial list. Not only because this should have been in there, this should have been in the top 3. And I want to do a video about it because I think not only is this an amazing Elvis Presley record, I think this is a record that gives us insight into one of the most burning questions or dilemmas within the world of Elvis Presley. What is that dilemma? Well, the last, especially 5-6 years, I hear a lot of people say Elvis Presley should not be the king of rock and roll because he stole rock and roll from black artists and black audiences. And the only way that he became as famous as he did was because he sang black music to a white audience. And I don't think that is a very cynical way of looking at it, because yeah, he popularized rock and roll. And as a matter of fact, Sam Phillips from Sun Records said in the early 50s, and you can read it on the back of this cover, I am going to quote that. He said that if he could find a young white singer who could sound and feel like a black singer, he would make $1 billion. Now, he didn't turn out to make $1 billion. He made $35,000 when he sold Elvis to RCA. But there is something going on there. When you go into detail to that, I think it's also wise to consider that history is always told backwards, and we look at history as if it's logical, but there are 2 other options that may have happened. One option may have been that because there was not a white transition of rock and roll to white audiences, it may never have popularized, like the blues, which was kept to black audiences for a very, very, very long time. Racism and discrimination still is an issue, but back then it was so much worse that genres could be kept to a certain race. What would have happened to rock and roll if there was not a crossover in the shape of Elvis Presley, who is a white man who grew up in black surroundings, and there were clear black influences. He didn't mimic those; they were sincere because he grew up in a black surrounding. And those influences do shape the way music sound. I have 2 versions of the same song. One version of Lightning Hopkins and one version of Townes Van Zandt. And there is so much definition in language, in pronunciation, in the way you speak, the way you may sing out of the cultural context where you're coming from, that 2 versions of the same song played in the same way with the same notes vocally, but by a black blues singer and a white country singer coming from different social, cultural surroundings, makes one version of the song a blues song and one version a country song. Listen to it yourself. Some of these American genres, these root genres, are very close connected. And sometimes the big difference is culture. So Elvis here, as a mixture, may be a very special moment that we actually needed. Also, another scenario may have been that somebody like Colonel Parker would have put all the effort that he put into Elvis Presley into a black rock and roll musician like Little Richard or like Chuck Berry, and give them all the guidance. Who knows if that may have succeeded, and who knows if there would have been better progress in getting white audiences into black genres, and what that may have done for racism and discrimination and segregation. We don't know. It may also have never crossed. Perhaps Elvis Presley was a good thing, because now eventually more people got introduced to black music. It's always tough, but what I do notice on this record is that there's more to it than just a white guy mimicking black music. This record contains the early raw recordings from 1954, and it sounds great. The quality of it is really good, and you can hear that the band is not as skillful, or it's not as produced as later albums. It's very raw, and you hear a talent that should be taken into consideration when talking about the influence of Elvis Presley. There is an element of a wild vocalist, not as wild as Gene Vincent or Little Richard. There is a youthful wildness, but already there is a charmer. It's a loving, warm voice. It can be wild, but it's never really dangerous. It's inviting. It's this James Dean-like, come with me into the night and you'll have a wild adventure. I do not know any vocalist who appeals to so many different emotions and has these nuances, especially from such an early age. Elvis Presley is not just the king of rock and roll because he was the biggest rock and roll singer. He is one of the most talented young men. When you listen to the raw element and energy going on here, there is no denying that in the core basis of Elvis Presley was a talent, a charm, an energy, a vocalist that knows no equal. And when we discuss the course of rock and roll, the development of pop music, and also what that has to do with race problems, we should keep in mind that a part of his success, and perhaps even a large part of his success, also may attribute it to the quality of his voice. Now, the songs themselves, we know where the roots are. Those are black rock and roll. Definitely. Absolutely. But Elvis Presley did add to the genre. And there's great talent. And you can hear it here. So I'm curious, where would you place it in the top 10? Because I'm going for 2 or 3. I love it. And thank you all for pointing it out to me, because I want to keep learning more and more great records and songs and share them with you again. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye.